Hello and welcome to the topic Acute Myeloid Leukemia or AML in the module Hematology. By the end of this session, you should be able to define acute myeloid leukemia, explain the pathophysiology and risk factors associated with AML, outline the clinical manifestations, list the investigations that are carried out to diagnose, assess the severity and prognosticate the disease, discuss the principles of management, and discuss the prognosis of AML. Let's get started. So AML is the malignant clonal expansion of myeloid blast in the bone marrow. Let's look into the word myeloid. Its origin comes from the Greek word myelos, meaning marrow. Hence, the word myeloid tells us that it pertains to the bone marrow. Myeloblasts have a different lineage to lymphoblasts. These are unipotent stem cells that differentiate in granulocytes, which are the neutrophils, eosinophils, and basophils. Besides, symptoms of marrow expansion such as bone pain and hematopoietic failure such as cytopenia, there are various consequences of excess myeloblasts in the circulation. As these immature blasts are not meant for peripheral circulation, they are likely to spontaneously lyse and cause complications such as hyperuricemia, renal failure, and tumor lysis syndrome. Depending on the maturity of these malignant blasts, they are also capable of impacting the coagulation cascade, potentially leading to disseminated intravascular coagulation. Extramedullary organ infiltration and hyperleukocytosis or leukostasis are also possible consequences of disease progression. According to the 2016 revised WHO classification of myeloid neoplasms and acute leukemia, AML is classified as AML with recurrent genetic abnormalities such as translocations. For example, translocation 8 and 21, translocation 9 and 11, translocation 6 and 9. Apart from that, AML also exists with myelodysplasia-related changes, therapy-related myeloid neoplasms, AML not otherwise specified, myeloid sarcoma, myeloid proliferations related to trisomy 21, blastic plasmacytoid dendritic cell neoplasm, and acute leukemias of ambiguous lineage. As for the pathophysiology of AML, it conceptually is similar, if not identical, to the pathophysiology of ALL. Again, somatic mutations in myeloblasts lead to uncontrolled proliferation of immature precursors that do not have the capacity of differentiating into specialized cells and have impaired apoptosis pathways. In AML, the replacement of normal blood elements with immature, undifferentiated cells results in hematopoietic failure, the leading cause of death in AML. Rather than physical replacement of normal marrow, it is more likely that secretion of inhibitory substances such as chemokines that causes suppression of normal hematopoiesis, as there is little correlation between blast percentage and cytopenias. The degree of anemia, thrombocytopenia, and neutropenia will vary depending on disease severity. Besides that, the rapid proliferation of myeloblasts often result in extramedullary accumulation, most commonly in the blood, spleen, and liver. Infiltration of the lungs and CNS may occur, often when white blood cell counts exceed 50,000 cells per microliter and when blasts are monocytic or express CD56 antigen on their surface. Risk factors for developing AML include being over the age of 65, previous treatment with chemotherapy, previously having a history of hematological dysbiosis, genetics, constitutional karyotype abnormalities, exposure to radiation, exposure to benzene, and being male. The leading risk factor of AML is having a prior hematologic disorder, most common of which myelodysplastic syndrome MDS. MDS is a bone marrow disease that mostly occurs in older patients and manifests as chronic progressive cytopenias spanning over months or even years. Patients with low-risk MDS are at a lower risk of developing AML as compared to their counterparts with high-risk MDS who frequently end up developing AML. Other preceding hematological disorders that predisposes to AML are aplastic anemia and myeloproliferative disorders, especially myelofibrosis. As more patients survive their primary malignancy, the number of patients with therapy-related AML increases due to exposure to chemotherapeutic agents. Patients exposed to chemotherapeutic agents can be divided into those exposure to alkylating agents and those with exposure to topoisomerase II inhibitors. Patients with AML will present with signs and symptoms of bone marrow failure and organ infiltration. Onset is variable. Younger patients tend to present with acute symptoms that develop over a few days to a couple of weeks. Older patients also tend to have a longer course. They may develop fatigue, which may last from weeks to months before other symptoms manifest. The typical manifestations of bone marrow failure include anemia that can manifest as fatigue, weakness, pallor, malaise, dyspnea on exertion, tachycardia, and exertional chest pain. Thrombocytopenia causing mucosal bleeding, bruising, petechia or purpura, epistaxis, gingival bleeding, and even heavy menstruation. Do remember that bleeding could very well be caused by coagulopathy as a result of disseminated intravascular coagulation. Hemorrhage into the lungs, gastrointestinal tract, and central nervous system is life-threatening. Neutropenia predisposes to severe infections by endogenous aerobic gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria, Candida, and Aspergillus species. Next, let's take a look at clinical manifestations. So, organ infiltration with leukemic cells are less common and less severe in AML. As compared to ALL, however, patients with monocytic subtypes are more likely to have organ infiltration as compared to other AML subtypes. Most common sites of infiltration are the spleen, liver, gums, and skin. Patients with splenomegaly often feel fullness in the left upper quadrant and early satiety. Hepatomegaly and jaundice are expected in patients with liver infiltration. Gum infiltrations are often noticed first by their dentist. Gingivitis may present as swollen gums, whereas thrombocytopenia causes gums to bleed. Leukemic cutis or myeloid sarcoma typically presents as nodular skin lesions with a purple or grey-blue color, though clinical appearances can vary. Meningeal infiltration can cause cranial nerve palsies, headache, visual or auditory symptoms, altered mental status, and transient ischemic attacks or strokes. Patients with a high leukemic cell burden can present with bone pain caused by increased pressure in the bone marrow. As with the case of acute leukemia, the initial approach for a patient with suggestive clinical or lab features, the first set of investigations are to look at routine lab studies, which include full blood counts with differentials. So here, this will demonstrate anemia and thrombocytopenia of varying degree. White blood cells can count range from low to high, and this varies with patients. A peripheral blood smear will find you the presence of circulating myeloblasts, but this alone is not sufficient to establish a diagnosis of AML. Schistocytes are occasionally seen if DIVC is present. Liver function tests and renal function tests may be abnormal, secondary to infiltrative disease, and are necessary before starting therapy. Comprehensive metabolic panel, which is often deranged, due to increased cell lysis, include uric acid elevation, which reflects the extent of tumor burden, hypercalcemia caused by bony infiltration or ectopic release of parathyroid hormone-like substance, phosphorus elevation due to ineffective leukopoiesis and chemotherapy-induced tumor lysis, hypercalcemia as a result of extensive cell lysis, and LDH elevation due to increased cell turnover. Coagulation studies should be done as it could help identify features of disseminated intravascular coagulation. The diagnosis of AML is made when at least 20% of myeloblasts are present in the bone marrow, and this requires a bone marrow aspirate. If unable to acquire the bone marrow sample, peripheral blood may be utilized. Histochemistry, cytogenetics, and immunophenotyping and molecular studies aid in distinguishing blasts of lymphoid and myeloid lineage. Staining for myeloperoxidase-rich granules lead to formation of all-ROTS or MPO positive, and these are pathognomonic for AML. Other immunohistochemistry findings in AML are terminal deoxynucleotidyl transferase and periodic acid Schiff-Pass negative. Flow cytometry immunophenotyping also helps differentiate AML from ALL and further differentiate the subtypes of AML. For example, the HLA-DR markers positive for most AML but negative in APL. In some instances, immunophenotypes are correlated with prognosis. Cytogenetic studies are also useful, and here a subtype of AML, which is APML, which bears the translocation 15-17 chromosome abnormality and warrants a different treatment regimen. In AML, the predominant cells involve myeloblasts, and these are large basophilic blasts. They are 2 to 4 times the size of a regular red blood cell and have round or kidney-shaped nuclei with fine chromatin and prominent nucleoli. These blasts contain more cytoplasms with fine azurophilic granules. They may exhibit all ROTS, which is pointed by the red arrow, which are pink-red rod-shaped granular cytoplasmic inclusion bodies in malignant immature myeloblasts, and they are MPO positive, which are especially numerous in acute promyelocytic leukemia or APML. There may be a leukemic hiatus where blasts and mature leukocytes are seen but no immediate forms are present. Chest radiographs help assess for pneumonia and cardiac diseases. Echocardiography or multiple gated acquisition scanning is required once the diagnosis of AML is confirmed, as many chemotherapeutic agents are cardiotoxic and baseline cardiac function should be established. ECG should be performed before treating AML. CT of the head is not routine but is done in patients with CNS symptoms, and CSF should be examined in cases of suspected CNS involvement. As mentioned before, immunophenotyping can offer more insight to disease prognosis. The major of subtypes are positive for CD13, CD33, 34, CD117, and HLA-DR. Cytogenetic analysis provides valuable prognostic information. The European Leukemia Net recommends risk stratification of AML patients based on genetic abnormalities. As mentioned previously, cytogenetic studies can identify the translocation chromosomal abnormality, and specifically in APML we have the translocation 15 and 17, which responds to all trans-retinoic acid as opposed to transposition 11 and 17. Patients with multiple cytogenetic abnormalities have poorer prognosis. The bone marrow should also be evaluated for several molecular abnormalities which are not detected with routine cytogenetics, and they have prognostic importance in patients with AML. The general principle of treatment involves a multi-agent dose-intense chemotherapy regimen given in phases. Induction therapy, and this mainly aims to reduce the tumor burden and restore normal hematopoiesis. Choice of regimen will depend on the age and fitness of the patient to withstand therapy. Consolidation therapy is the choice of agents used depends on risk factors for relapse such as cytogenetics and white blood cell count at presentation. So common agents, for example, anthracyclines such as idarubicin, high-dose daunorubicin, antimetabolites such as cytarabine and methotrexate, and hypomethylating agents such as azacitidine. Patients who are unable to tolerate intensive chemotherapy can be given low-dose subcutaneous cytarabine. Radiation therapy is not routine in the treatment of AML. However, there are a few instances where it may be considered to treat extramedullary metastases such as to brain and spinal fluid or to the testicles. Radiation of the whole body before a stem cell transplant. Rarely, but it could help shrink a myeloid sarcoma if it is compressing the trachea and causing difficulty breathing. Reducing pain in area of bone if chemotherapy hasn't assisted. The European Leukemia Net have identified 3 levels of risk base for cytogenetic abnormalities which are favorable, intermediate, and adverse. Generally, the 5-year survival rate following the treatment of AML is roughly 30%, and this value can vary depending on the patient's age. Unfavorable prognostic factors include being over 60 at time of presentation, having elevated levels of LDH, having various translocations, karyotype abnormalities, FLT3 gene mutation, complex pattern of aberrations, and immunophenotype CD34 and MDR1. Favorable prognostic factors are translocation 8 and 21 and APL with translocation 15-17. Do note that therapy-related AML confers a particular poor prognosis. The 5-year survival rate is approximately 10%. APL with PML-RAR alpha rearrangement or translocation 15-17 is a particularly important subtype of AML, representing 10 to 15% of all AML cases. APL tends to affect a younger age group, with the median age of patients being 31. Hispanics are also affected more so than other ethnic groups. These patients commonly present with a coagulation disorder such as DIVC. Most present with pancytopenia rather than elevated white cell counts. In fact, white cell counts higher than 5,000 cells per microliter at presentation is associated with poor prognosis. Pancytopenia due to acute promyelocytic leukemia is a life-threatening emergency that must be treated immediately and aggressively. There are 2 histological subtypes of APML, hypergranular, which you can see on the left, and hypogranular on the right. Atypical promyelocytes with bilobed nuclei are common in both. In hypergranular variant, the cells contain large dense cytoplasmic granules, sheets of fine granules, and varying number of ore rods, seen by the red arrows. In the hypogranular variant, granules are almost absent and the cytoplasm appears pale. Faggot cells are less commonly seen in this variant. So to summarize, AML is a life-threatening disorder that predominantly affects older adults. There are many subtypes, of which acute promyelocytic leukemia warrants specific management with ATRA or ATRA. Typically, immature blasts are present in peripheral blood smears, though the definitive diagnosis can only be made with a bone marrow biopsy, of which the presence of more than 20% of blasts confirms the diagnosis. In AML, cytogenetic abnormalities are important factors and can affect management. Though most patients are treated with chemotherapy regimens in different phases such as induction, consolidation, and maintenance, there are various adjuncts such as biological therapy, immunotherapy used in to improve outcomes. Despite most patients achieving a first complete clinical remission, AML is associated with high incidence of relapse, which leads to a poor overall survival. We have come to the end of this topic. Thank you.